I almost said good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to our June board meeting. Sorry we're a little late, but the agendas are posted on the board. We welcome any of the public that's with us. If you are here to address the board for the budget hearing, I would suggest or ask that you please sign up at the back door so that we can get your name on the agenda during that when we get to that portion of the agenda. Right now, though, we'd like to open our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Superintendent Stevens has offered to do that, please. Thank you, Superintendent. We'd like to take just a minute, if we could, and recognize somebody that's with us. And if I could, I'd like to have Becky Oakey introduce our little guest just for a minute and have her explain to us her intent, please. Becky. Congratulations. Thank you. No, bring her through. Bring her through. She's the first one that I'm aware of under the Brent and Diane. Come shake our hands, please. This is you're in the Brent Richardson boardroom. Are you aware of that? Richardson sat in this chair right here for about 15, 16 years. Teacher right there because he taught me. So he was a teacher. There you go. There you go. Thank you and congratulations. That's awesome. Thank you, Becky. Board, our first action item would be the consent calendar. I would entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar. Moved by Doug, seconded by Janice. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Looks like we're going to move into ratification of employee contracts presented by Kevin, please.
Superintendent Stevens, Board, negotiated agreements have tentatively been reached with the Weber Education Association, the Weber Education Support Professionals, and the Weber Administrators Association. Just a couple highlights from the negotiation settlement. There was a 4% cost of living raise. The district will continue to pick up our portion of the insurance increase. $100 increase into the HSA fund for all employees, and a one-time bonus for certified employees of $500 and $350 for classified. All of these agreements have been ratified by each of the employee membership groups. It is recommended that the negotiated agreements with WEA, WESP, and WAA be approved by the Weber School Board of Education.
Thank you, Kevin. Board, you've heard the presentation on the ratification of employee contracts by Kevin Cedarholm. I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Paul, second by Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you again, Kevin, to you and your team on all levels where they did. We've got great employees. Rod, welcome back for a minute. Congratulations and thank you. We know it takes a village to raise a child, and we've got that village all around here. So thanks to everybody's hands that played a part in that and getting that done. Approval of the 2017-2018 budget. Robert Peterson, please.
Okay, we have copies of our budget being sent or being passed out. The first 5 pages are my presentation, and so you can kind of follow along with the first 5 pages. The other pages are the global numbers when it comes to the budget. The actual budget form that we send to the State Office of Education is quite lengthy and long and involved, and when that is finalized, because the due date for that is normally July 15th. We'll send a copy to the board as well and make that available online as well. Let's kind of launch into it. A lot of times we want to know where does the money come from? And so I've just got some big numbers here. We have our main fund is the M&O fund, or Fund 1. Another term for it is a general fund. M&O stands for maintenance and operation. And we collect about $22 million in property taxes locally, and about 16 that we collect and turn over to the state. And then, so that's really a state revenue there. And then we have investment income, which will be going up because interest rates are now going up, finally. And so then we transfer some to capital. And then there are other sources of local income. So the local income is about 11.7% of the total. The state income, we got this local tax, but state unrestricted is $103 million. That's our biggest source of revenue. $46 million is what we call categorical funds. That includes the biggest one is special ed, and then there's CTE. And then from on down there, those categoricals have to be spent in the areas designated. Then we have about $12,174,000 of federal dollars. So you can see our local dollars are 11.7% of the total, state are 82.2%, and federal are 6%. So we really rely on the state. That's why what the state legislature does is so important to us, because that's where our money really is. And it is driven by enrollments, okay? Another fund we have is school food services. We have 3 sources there too. We have sales. This is the sale of school lunches to students. We also have state revenue that comes into us from state liquor fees. And then we also have federal matching dollars. You can see that the federal is the biggest percentage here, 50%. 31% here, 17% there. And so whereas this one is mostly dependent on state, this fund is highly dependent on federal revenue as well. The capital outlay fund. The capital outlay fund is basically almost all local. we collected 13 million in property tax, earnings on investments, and other like sale of assets, transfers, that kind of thing. So we're looking at 96%. We also have some state money we qualify for, and we're hoping to maintain that state dollars. It seemingly we slipped a little, but we're going to correct that. Scroll up a little if you could. Student Activity Fund. This is the money that are in all of our schools at the end of the year. It's kind of the balance. So the cumulative of our 40 plus locations have about $5.8 million. We call it student activity monies, but it's also monies that the schools have that they put away to buy a copy machine or a lawnmower or supplies, because we require them to do that. Okay. Then scroll down. The foundation is a component unit for us, and at the end of the year they have about 1.9 million, all local monies. And then the last fund we have is the debt service fund. This is what is collected to pay off bonds. And so we collect about 13,167,000 locally for that. So total all revenues, about 26%, a little over 26%, 68 million is local, 66% is state, and a little over 7% is federal. So that's kind of the revenue picture. It kind of gives you a sense of where our money comes from. Every once in a while there's a movement or a to say, hey, let's not worry about the federal money. Utah can go out on its own. And it is, although it is true that the federal dollars are a small percentage of the total, they're still significant. We would make a lot of cuts if we didn't have our federal dollars. Okay, scroll down, Trent. Okay, what about expenses? Education is a people business. It really is. It's almost all compensation, especially in Fund 1. Fund 1, you can see the various categories we spend our money on. Instruction is by far and away the highest. 72% of all dollars go into instruction. And this is above the state average. State average is in the high 60s. Weber School District diverts or puts a lot of money in the classroom. We just do. And then student support services, 3.6% of the total. This is school administration and staff. This is principals and secretaries and those kind of things, is 5.8 million. District administration and staff, this is administrators at the district level plus secretaries, and that is 2%. The central services like finance and tech, and there's a couple of others, smaller ones, about 2.5%. The maintenance and custodial is 9.2%, and transportation is about 4.4% of the total. This is where we spend our dollars. And you can see over here, compensation is huge. Over 90% of all M&O dollars go to compensation. Less than 10% go to things that are not compensation. And compensation includes wages, salaries, Social Security, retirement, insurance, those kinds of things. Okay, school food services is not skewed so much towards compensation. Their biggest purchase is food. That's their biggest expense is food. And then the rest is compensation. And then capital outlay is almost all non-compensation because we're building things. And this amount of money over the next 2 or 3 years is going to be much higher than 17.2 million because we are in a building mode right now. We're in it. A bond election was passed last November, and we're building. So you'll see at the end of this year when we report, this is going to be a lot higher. Student Activity Fund, it's almost all non-compensation. The foundation, almost all non-compensation. Debt service is all non-compensation. So when it comes down to the total, about 75% of money of our dollars are spent on people, and 25% are spent on equipment, supplies, other things that support the enterprise. Okay? All right, where are we at in our fund balances? At the last fiscal year, we ended healthy. We had $33 million in the general fund. Debt service had about 1.3 million. Capital had 9,422,000, and other 8,106,000. This includes the foundation, child nutrition, and student services. They're lumped into one. A key figure here is this economic stabilization. By state law, you cannot have more than about 8% of your revenue, and or no, 4% rather. For us, it's up in the 8 millions. And so we've been trying to grow that over time. We also have an early retirement benefit that that's very valuable to our employees. We've put money away there, and we have unassigned of $12 million. Okay, that's how we ended fiscal year 17. Scroll down. We are anticipating surpluses in all of our funds except for debt service. Debt service will go down a little, but it's a temporary dip because we have a projected rebounding back. You can see we expect, just bottom line down here, to grow the unassigned by $2,496,000, and so that's a healthy increase of about $2.5 million, and that's our estimate. Debt service will be down a little bit, but they still have sufficient fund balance, and that will grow next year. And capital, this is kind of below a $12,798,000. It grew because we got bond money in there, but it's going to grow again as we put bond money, but then it will drop again as we build buildings. Then the other is relatively flat, unchanged. Okay, so we're in a very healthy, stable environment, and that's the way we like it. Next one. Okay, here are some of the budget highlights as we go for the next year. So board, after I give my presentation, we're going to do two things. We'll need two motions. We'll have a motion to approve the fiscal year 18 budget, the 2017 to 18 school year budget, and this is our last chance. It's June 13th. The year ends on June 30th, and by law we have to have this done before June 21st. And so we're within the law, and then we are going to also approve the working budget for next year, and the working budget for next year at this point is based on estimates. We feel they're pretty good estimates, but nevertheless they're estimates. There are still moving parts, and so here are the priorities for the year coming up. Okay, as been mentioned by Kevin, our compensation package has just been approved with our employee groups. We funded steps and lanes. We gave a 4% base increase. Health insurance costs, our share was $1.1 million, and then an increased HSA contribution of $133,000. So this is a healthy amount, $6,450,000+ going into compensation. Okay, we have other needs too. It's a desire of the district administration and the board to have an equity specialist and start an equity program. We've set aside $250,000. We have a CTE maintenance of effort that's required by state law, $380,000. As a result of negotiation, our goal is to add full-time office aides to elementaries. We're going to add on another 4 at a cost of $89,000. We're going to add to our counselor support to keep up our ratios so that we pass accreditation, and that'll be $85,000. Maintenance needs another HVAC staff. Right now there's 1 for all of our buildings, and so we're going to double that to 2. The step 15 adjustment on the teacher salary schedule, that's a tweak there. We're going to launch a new employee assistance program. This will be a great tool for our human resources and our employees, that they can get counseling and things like that if they need assistance that way. And then just a slight one, moving a maintenance employee. The funding source for all of these ongoing priorities are new WPU dollars, and right now we always budget on no student growth, even though we estimate we're going to grow, and equalization revenue. These are both our result of legislative action, and we have given ourselves a little bit of a cushion there of $586,000 in a budget our size. That's not a huge cushion, but we feel it's sufficient, and so we feel comfortable with these priorities. Okay, now when it comes to one-time priorities, the superintendent has informed the board, and I'll inform you all that the legislature funded, it's called the flexible allocation one time. They put a good amount of money in that category for all school districts and LEAs, and so we're spending it on one-time things. We are going to award a bonus to our licensed and classified employees. That'll cost about $1.5 million. Reading adoption, we're going to adopt a reading adoption on our textbooks. We're adding another $1 million in there to help with that. Stipends, you just can't buy the textbooks. You have to do some training of individuals, so we've got that in place. And then also, as a part of negotiations, we're doing a pilot program on teacher comp time for when they cover for various things. And then change order, since we started our building construction, we have a couple of change orders in our elementary schools, so that's a one-time expense of $200,000. The funding source is the flexible allocation. We estimate, and once again, it's just an estimate, $3,363,000, which will give us a $431,000 cushion there. Once again, not a huge cushion considering how big it is, but we think it's good. And then we also like to account for any contingencies that might arise throughout the year, and we feel very comfortable with this. Keep scrolling, Trent. Child nutrition rates are unchanged for school lunches. So that's the story behind that one. And we've held them pretty steady for a long time. The only thing that changed was elementary was bumped here, and junior high was also bumped right here, but the high school lunch cost has been steady for a long time. Okay, next one. Okay, capital outlay budget. As I mentioned earlier, on November 7th, voters approved a bond authorizing us to bond for money, and with these projects in mind, the Fremont High School addition, and it's currently under construction, a new elementary in Far West City in the Remuda area, it's currently under construction, and the Pleasant View Elementary, a new Pleasant View Elementary. Both of these elementaries have yet to be named. That's a separate process, but all three projects are under construction. We're going to rebuild Roy Junior High School and replace the old Roy Junior High on site. And we have an architect and a design selected, and they're doing preliminary work right now. But the construction phase has not started. Then Weber Innovations High School expansion. This is a highly successful enterprise that we have going down on 12th Street. We're going to expand that to allow for increased capacity on enrollment. That has not started. Truth in taxation. When we bring these two elementaries on, the one that's going to be in Remuda and the one that's in Pleasant View, we have to account for ongoing costs. These include utilities. Each one will need a principal. Each one will need an office staff, a reading specialist, a custodian, those kinds of things. And we have the money for the one-time construction, but we do not have the money for the ongoing costs. And so we really advertise this a lot during the campaign. And there are two ways that you could raise, that are commonly used to raise money. One is a voted leeway. You have a ballot proposition side by side with the bond. And we chose not to do that because it would have put a tax on our people a year earlier needlessly. And so we heavily publicized, we're fully transparent, and said we were going to have our board, passed a board levy in a truth and taxation hearing when the time is right. And I'm telling you, every publication we sent out, every meeting, this was pushed, or people were informed. And so we're going to have a truth and taxation on August 8th at 6:00 p.m. And that needs to be approved by you board members as far as the time to tell. And then at the time when we estimated this, we told voters that it was going to cost about $24 a year, or $2 a month, or another way to look at it is $12 per school, or $1 per month per school on the two new schools. Our assessed value has gone up pretty healthy, and we feel that that'll be lower than $2. How much lower we don't know for certain because we don't have all the state rates, but we feel it's going to be lower than $2, so we feel good about that. Okay, next one. Finally, tax rates. This is an important part of your job, board, is to set tax rates. We have had good increases in assessed value. As we came out of the recession, we had a 2.55% increase. Then the next year we had an 8.2% increase, then an 8.3, then an 8.8, then a 9.9, and this year we just received our new assessed valuation last week, like on Friday, and it was up 16%. That's a healthy increase. And so this $11 billion, the value of every property in Weber School District boundary is over $11 billion now. That's a new high. It's never been that high before in the history of Weber County. And as you know, or many of you know, and I'll inform you if you don't know, when the values go up, rates come down. And so the taxpayer is not to be harmed by rising values. And so you can see values have gone down, or the tax rate for Weber School District has gone down and we had a truth in taxation here to beef up our capital levy, flat here, then down there, down there. And so the annual tax on a $243,000 home, that's our last average that we had when we went to the bond campaign, was $243,000 on an average home, was about $819 a year. We don't have an update yet on the average value. It's going to go up. And we also do not have, this is an estimated tax rate. We feel that even with the truth in taxation that we propose to raise money for the ongoing cost, the total rate is still going to go down. Most taxpayers will still see a decline in their tax rate. Current overall rate, I always like to compare us. How do we do with the districts along the Wasatch Front? There are 15 districts along the Wasatch Front. When you go from Logan to Nebo, they're at the top two actually in tax rates, and the average rate is 007534. Our rate is 13th from the bottom. We have a low tax rate compared to other school districts. Our board has traditionally been very frugal when it comes to tax rates, and we take serious our obligation to taxpayers. Murray and Salt Lake are lower than us. Anyway, so President Ritchie, that's my presentation. And just to let you know, once again, we need two motions. One, to approve the final budget and for the current year that we're in, that ends June 30th. And then one, to approve the working or initial budget for the year that will be starting on July 1.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that presentation. Board, Board, what we'd like to do is deviate a little bit. Let's go into a motion for the close of the final budget 2017-2018 year. And I would open that motion right now. So moved by Paul, second. Mitzi, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Very well. So now what we'll do is we'll go to a public hearing. Claire?
Thanks, I forgot about the public hearing part.
Seeing nobody is signed, we'll need to still go into a public hearing and then we'll go from there. So I will entertain a motion to go into public hearing. Motion by Janice, second by Dean. Any discussion? Actually, all in favor? Aye. So, do we have anybody that has come to our meeting and did not get on the register that would like to approach? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Bruce, second by Paul. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries. So, I will now call for a motion on the tentative budget for the 2018-2019 budget that Robert has so eloquently discussed with us. Entertain a motion. Janice? So moved by Janice, second by Mitzi. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. There's our budget, Robert.
Very good.
Thank you.
One other thing I'd like to say is that it looks really simple, but it's kind of like Michael Jordan. What he does looks awesome because he's good at it. And and I'm not saying I'm good at it, but my staff is. The person who really put that budget together was Seth Pilkington, and others of our staff have worked really hard. Those few pages had a lot of work behind it and elbow grease. So so thanks to my staff, they did a great job.
Dean said it was a slam dunk.
Thank you, Robert, and thank your people for that. I mean, it takes everybody, again, to make that happen, so we appreciate everybody. Next item on the agenda will be approval of the revised policy 5400 restraints and seclusions on a second reading. Lori Rasmussen, please.
Thank you. Robert, I'm going to look at you in a different light now. MJ, right? Okay, so Superintendent Stevens and Board, last month we, on a first read, approved the update to policy 5400, which is our seclusion and restraint policy. And that update just brings us into alignment with the recommendations from the Office of Civil Rights. And it also brings us in line with updated Utah State Board rule and IDEA rules. So since our first meeting last month, I have received no feedback. And if you don't have any questions or discussion, then I would recommend that we approve this on a final reading to update policy 5400.
Thank you, Lori. Board, you've heard the presentation on the second reading of revised policy 5400 on restraints and seclusion. I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Mitzi, second by Dean. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Board.
Number F on our agenda would be approval of revised policy 8500 on the wellness policy on a second reading as well. Laurie Adams.
Superintendent Stevens and Board. Last month, you approved the first reading to the revised wellness policy that had not been updated since 2009. This updated new policy puts us in compliance with the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act and also with local and federal policies and requirements. Since our last meeting last month, we have received no further comments or questions on the revisions. So at this time, we recommend that the board approve the revised wellness policy on a second reading.
Thank you, Laurie. Appreciate that. Board, you've heard the presentation on the revised policy 8500 wellness policy on a second read. I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Paul, second by Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you.
Approval of public entry resolution presented by Dr. Peterson. Again.
Okay. A little while ago, 2 days ago, we received a notice from the state treasurer's office that we needed to have approved by our governing body a resolution that allows a minimum of 2 individuals to make transactions with the public treasurer's fund. Much of our, I would say most, greater than 50% of our excess money is in the Public Treasurer's Investment Fund, the PTIF. And it's a highly liquid fund that gets decent interest rates, and we use it as a sweep. We put our money there as soon as we get it from the state, and then as we pay bills, we take money out trying to maximize interest earnings. And the 2 main people that deal with that are myself and Seth Pilkington. And so we needed a minimum of 2, so I put the 2 of us on that resolution. We can add more, but we have to have at least 2 by June 30th, and it has to be approved by this board. And so I'd recommend that we approve the motion, or that we approve the resolution as was put in your packet or mailed to you. It was mailed to you late. Anyway, so that's my take on that.
Thank you, Robert. Board, you've heard the presentation on the public entity resolution. I'd entertain a motion to accept. So moved by Doug, second by Dean. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. For information, Board, there are fee waiver report in your packet. As was pointed out by Superintendent just now, that number is going down in the cost, which is probably a good thing, and it probably reflects the economy and what's going on there. So again, that's nice to see that fee waiver drop. And nothing else is on our agenda. I would thank staff for their attendance this summer. Enjoy your time off. We will meet again in August, and I'd entertain a motion to close. So moved by Dean. Second by Mitzi. Do you want to have a discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Good night and thank you.